I just want to do a quick update on the Fed's balance sheet as we got the new numbers out today. The Fed's balance sheet is almost to 7.7 trillion. It is up in just the last week, $113 billion in a single week to another new all-time high. And in less than 4 months now, the Fed's balance sheet is now up $450 billion. So the last couple months, really since Joe Biden got into the White House, the amount of balance sheet expansion by the Fed has started to ramp back up again enormously. On top of this, the drawdown in the US Treasury General account has also started to rapidly accelerate as well. So the drunken idiots here in Washington, D.C., both political parties are spending like there is no tomorrow. Members of Republicans and Democrats, many of them now, believe that deficits don't matter. Also, a Democrat senator was caught on a hot mic this week talking about how in the next 2 years before the next congressional election, Congress is going to attempt, along with the White House, to ram many, many trillions in additional spending before the next congressional election. So the Fed's balance sheet, unless the U.S. Treasury and the Fed are going to be moving many, many trillions off balance sheet into special purpose vehicles, the Fed's balance sheet is headed towards 8 trillion very, very soon, perhaps as soon as in a few months. And this should put a bottom in paper, gold, and silver prices in US dollars in the next couple months, especially if the Fed's balance sheet goes over 8 trillion, heads towards 9 trillion, and that's the pace that things are going. Now, things can be slowed down a little bit if a lot of the spending here at the federal level is instead used from the U.S. Treasury General account, which is continuing a rapid drawdown in just the last couple months. Already hundreds of billions of dollars have been drawn down in the last couple months. I think in the last 2 or 3 weeks alone, almost 150 billion, might be over 150 billion, has been drawn down in just the last couple weeks. We'll see what happens with the U.S. Treasury General account, but if they're going to zero out the U.S. Treasury General account, especially with the size of the budget deficits now as they are, it's not going to last very long. But normally the U.S. Treasury General account for a while now has stayed on an average range around 300 billion or 400 billion, as I talked about in my interview with Lynn Alden, which will hopefully be out in the next couple days for patrons after I finish editing it. We talk extensively about the finances of the U.S. federal government and pace that spending, the amount of treasuries being issued, the Fed's balance sheet. We talk a lot about that in the interview. But ultimately, once the U.S. Treasury General account is drawn down a lot to either that average range of 300 or 400 billion or it's zeroed out, the last resort to subsidizing big government, to subsidizing these insane budget deficits, to subsidizing bailouts of states and municipalities, to funding all of these crazy spending programs that have already been announced in just the last couple months, and even more, many trillions more, that could potentially be announced in the next couple years before the next congressional election. A lot of that is going to fall on the Fed's balance sheet unless they can move trillions and trillions and trillions off balance sheet into these Enron style special purpose vehicles and just keep setting up new ones and move it around in a shell game, in a legalized government protected shell game, similar to how a drug cartel or a mafia or organized crime sets up a dummy corporation or LLC to dodge taxes. But this is the government doing it. This is government protected mafia. Welcome to dystopia.